Warning, if you're faint of heart or easily offended, this show is not for you.
Zeke, you came to my home. You saw all the stuff I have in place. Now, from what I understand, I didn't fail, but...
Well, Nick, you didn't fail, but you certainly didn't pass.
Okay.
And you have more going on than most, but you need to tighten it up.
And after you left my house, I couldn't believe how many things that I still needed to have in place to have my home hardened.
Work on it.
We're working on it right now.
Good.
All right. Thank you.
Yep.
Cool. This is the Nick Vertucci Show. I am Nick Vertucci. I got a great show today. I am with the modern day Donavon, the modern day problem solver, the fixer, the bounty hunter, and the wolf. Mr. Zeke Unger, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
You bet. So for the folks out there, let me do a quick intro to Zeke. I, of course, named all the names that he could be called. Let's go right into it. I met Zeke through a friend. I had a situation, something that needed solving. And, you know, I got almost 2 decades in law enforcement, and we'll talk about this, Zeke, in a little bit, why sometimes the stakes need to be raised a little bit. I made a call to a friend, a very close friend that I know would understand a situation that I was having, and you were referred to me. And you and I talked, and I knew within the first few minutes, and then we met, and then I especially knew that you were someone that I wanted to know, that I needed in my life, because like I said, even being in law enforcement for 2 decades, sometimes you can't just pick up the phone and call the cops.
This is
correct?
True. This is true.
So real quick, before we go any further with that, just in your words, tell the folks kind of who you are, what you do, and just explain it the best you can for someone that's just tuning in right now.
So I'm considered a professional problem solver.
Okay. And
problems come in a lot of different fashion, a lot of arrays, and my job to solve them.
And okay. And when you say solve them, so some of your clients, as you mentioned to me, are Fortune 500 companies, maybe some higher end echelon people in Hollywood, like the elites that kind of bump into situations because they're seen in the public, they're targeted in many different ways.
Sure.
Myself, I don't compare myself to that at all, but I am high profile. I'm here on the internet doing this show. I play professional poker at a high level, so I have hundreds of thousands of dollars coming in and out of the game, and so people see that, and so sometimes you can become a little bit of a target for some of the folks out there looking to grab a little something from someone else, maybe. I mean, there's so many different reasons why you can have a situation, and when I made the call to you, it was not something that law enforcement could really, maybe you can explain it to us. Why is it that there's a certain point, I know what it is, but why is it a certain point to where, like if you call the cops for this, why doesn't it go anywhere? And in your words, why sometimes does it have to escalate into someone who is a problem solver?
Well, as you know, problems come in different varieties.
Yeah.
And law enforcement is not geared to handle it.
Yeah.
Sometimes people have issues of embarrassment or confidentiality where they can't go to the police.
Right.
And that's where I come in on that level. So solving problems for me has been a lifetime achievement due to the fact is that I know how to do it and what tools to use that the police just don't have.
Yeah, and me, like I said, mentioning that I was in law enforcement, like I make a call and say, hey, this, that, they're going to be like, okay, they'll have to come out, take some information, but it just doesn't go anywhere unless there's actually someone. Sometimes it even takes the crime to happen and something to happen to an individual before even law enforcement can get involved, because they're so overwhelmed at the lower level. So many of the people may not know already that you are also a bounty hunter.
Correct.
You're a famous bounty hunter. You've been on TV. You've been on MSNBC. So my apologies to you for that.
Right.
Sorry that you had to be on that show. You've been on Fox News. You've been on many others talking about just your knowledge as far as I think I looked on your website. There was I think a cop or a criminal or someone that busted out of jail. You went on TV and you talked about the strategy of how they're going to be caught and the perimeter, and they have you on as an expert.
Correct.
Yeah. And you're a second-generation problem solver?
That's correct. My father was in the Israeli program from 1948 to 53 in the Menachem Begin administration, protection agent, problem solving at that level.
Yeah, wasn't it in May of 48 where Israel became a nation again?
That's correct.
It's May of 48 where they became a nation again. So it was right then when they reestablished their nation.
Correct. My father started as a freedom fighter in the Irgun. He ended up going to prison, and his cellmate was actually Menachem Begin.
Wow.
And after that, he became his personal protection agent from 48 to 53.
So not only is it in your DNA, but you probably grew up around watching how a lot of these things are solved, and
Absolutely.
It's just who you are.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and you know what I think is the most interesting part of this story is that you were not always on this side of things. You and I have discussed this. You've given me the approval to talk about it. You kind of were in the underground world, maybe doing some things that weren't always legal. You rode with professional biker clubs. We won't name who, what, why, or when. And you, as you told me, you were just a stone's throw away from probably being in the joint for the rest of your life if you didn't make a decision to redirect.
Sure. I had a baptism by fire when I was very young. My parents had passed away, and I had to make a decision whether I was going to be a victim or if I was going to move forward in my life, and I decided to move forward. And with that came the element of having to support myself.
Sure.
And started with, because of my background and my knowledge, I started with some of the families, making sure that things got from Miami to Los Angeles properly and safely, and worked with them for many years. And then I received a blessing to be able to move on and started in organized motorcycling. And my talent, organized motorcycling.
Sure.
And my talents were used at that point because I had the knowledge to do certain things business wise and make sure that things ran smoothly. So I was an asset to the community in that regard.
Mm-hmm. Was there a defining moment for you when you, if not, please just say it, just maybe it evolved slowly, but was there a defining moment where you said to yourself, I want out of this type of lifestyle and I want to redirect to this type of lifestyle?
Sure. Again, in 1999, being very successful in what I was doing.
What was that? Now, I'm not talking, I know sometimes we can't talk in detail. Successful in what you were doing in what?
Well, there were two levels of my life. One was the everyday business that people saw, and then there was the undertone that people didn't see. So on the surface, we were, private jets, leasing private jets, ground transportation around the world, massive motorcycle repair facilities, Harley-Davidson primarily.
Right.
And on the undertone, there was meth labs and moving cash and moving items.
Were you involved in the manufacturing of any type of chemicals?
Well, we owned and operated our own meth lab. And it's
you're
funny.
a businessman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, people said, "Oh, have you ever seen Breaking Bad?" I'm like, why watch? I lived it.
Yeah.
Why watch it?
Yeah.
It brings back all those old memories.
Sure.
And the show was grandiose, of course.
Of course, well, it has to be, right?
Yeah, because if you're running our kind of show, you don't want any problems.
No, correct. It's always better to be way under the radar.
Right.
Probably, if they followed you around in a reality show, it would be the most boring show ever.
For sure.
Yeah, but you have to do that when you're making a show about that. So whenever that time was where you decided to get out of that life, and I don't want to use the term go straight, but go wherever, just redirect. Mm-hmm. Did you have any pushback from the other side of the world that you were in? Because a lot of times they don't take kindly. I think, this is just what I would think, maybe to someone crossing over and chasing bad guys versus being the bad guy.
Sure. You know, a little bit of heat, but nothing too bad because I did it what we call honorably. You know, I went to them and I said, hey, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And the reason was organized crime was all over me.
Sure.
LAPD organized crime. And
LAPD organized crime. That's really funny because I've always, I better not say that. I was going to say, you know, I was a cop for almost 2 decades, and I joke because it's not true, but like almost like it is legalized gangbanging.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's a joke too because organized crime, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Organized crime. No, I got it. I had to catch up.
Right. So, you know, they decided to serve a major warrant on me.
Yeah.
And clean.
Yeah.
And decided to retire at that point.
Right.
And
it was just getting too hot.
It was hot. I mean, it was real hot. And, you know, basically it's the same thing on both levels. You just have to redirect the money and you have to redirect the effort.
Yeah. Yeah, I always said there's the hair trigger molecule away from cops and criminals of the same type of personality in the sense that a lot of like law enforcement, they love to chase after criminals, and criminals love to chase after the things they're chasing. And there's just this fine line. So I can understand that. Now, a lot of people watching, of course, are going to troll and say, you know, Nick said cops are like criminals. I'm not saying that. I'm saying there's a lot in the personality of both sides that, like, I know some guys could toggle either way, right? And they have a lot of the same personality traits when it comes to being leaders, being aggressive, wanting the hunt, wanting the adrenaline, that type of thing. Sure. And so it's very interesting to me, the whole part of it. And so you have a lot of, and I won't, if you can name any of them, that's fine. I understand privacy with your clients, but you have a lot of high-level Fortune 500 companies that have a lot of situations that come up, and a lot of really famous people that people would know that are, you're in their Rolodex. You're their first call. Is there anyone you can allude to, talk about, tell us anything about that would be interesting to the listeners? Of course, I understand that maybe you can't.
Yeah, it's not good business practice. Yeah. I've been doing it 45 years.
Totally, I get that.
And I can tell you this, there's a lot of situations that people hear about on a daily basis that we're responsible for making it go away.
Right. And how then, if for those that are listening, you have mentioned to me, and you said this is okay to say, you have mentioned to me that you work with the very, very high ups in one side of the fence, on one side of the fence with law enforcement to help you fix problems. And then you still have connections, if I may say, to the underworld to help solve problems. So can you try to mesh or explain in the best way you can without saying too much? How does that work? And me personally, I get what a great combination that is, because there are some problems that probably take a little bit of this and some that take a little bit of that, right?
Sure.
But how can you put that into words so someone watching can understand it and still give enough information to where it's something we want to hear?
So it's kind of like a balancing act on a tight wire.
Okay.
And the first thing is loyalty.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah, thank you. And by the way, we're smoking cigars because, Zeke, you are an avid cigar smoker. Every time you've ever showed up that I met you, you've had a cigar in your hand, whether it's lit or unlit. You requested, can we smoke during the show, which I love because I do smoke cigars. And then you also have a business.
Yeah.
And we can talk about that later, too.
Sure.
But sorry to cut you off, but I just want to let them know why we're smoking our brains out in
Absolutely.
here. Okay.
So, you know, the tight wire, loyalty, relationship. Can I use that lighter?
Mm-mm. Go ahead and figure out how to solve that problem. Done. Look.
So I've walked the line for so many years, and what each side knows is that they're protected, and by protected meaning there's to be no informant information either way.
Right.
All based on common good.
Right. So maybe this good side, sometimes their hands are tied doing the right thing or helping or doing things that they're passionate about because of the politics of it or the regulations, but they can help out in their own way.
Correct.
To make things right for good people.
Absolutely. And you hit the nail right on the head.
Yeah.
You know, it's basically all about relationship in this world.
Right.
And what you can get done and who you know. And when you put it together, it can be very successful.
And you and I have talked, and there are some interesting branches of law enforcement, state and federal, that you work with that, you know, if I was the problem in somebody's life,
right,
and I was contacted by somebody like that because I was causing a problem, that for someone like me would probably put a stop to it. At the same time,
right,
on this side, with some of those characters out there that live in a different world we live in, that are willing to be in a different world and do different things, I think if I was contacted by some cats like that too, it might have the same effect. So that combination is powerful depending on what the problem is, correct?
Powerful and invaluable.
Invaluable.
And there's not too many people that can pull it off for so many years successfully. Yeah. It's just about years and years of trial and error, building relationships and trust to help people. Right. It's really about helping my client.
And I really get that vibe from you. I mean, we've worked together now. I'm a client. It's not the hair club for men. I'm not only a client, I'm the president, right, but I am a client.
Right.
And your relationship with you and a contact with you is invaluable. I've recognized that from the second we started talking, because there are just certain levels that can't go any further with something. And if you really have a situation or a problem, it's nice to have that type of support. How can people get a hold of you? Because let's talk about it. You have you're a bail bondsman. That's a big part of your
Correct.
business. You have bodyguarding for people, right? Conflict resolution. You're a bounty hunter, a bail bondsman. And you also do something we'll talk about called target hardening, which we'll talk about in your personal residence or your businesses. You do threat detection, all sorts of things. So how does one, and we will put a link in our YouTube so someone could click your website or whatever it be, so that will be the way. But is there anything else you want to tell people about your services or about what you do? And is there a certain type of client that you won't take?
You know, we do everything from super high profile to pro bono cases for people that really need it, that don't have the means. Yeah. I believe in giving back.
Yeah.
And basically sometimes it's very hard for people to find someone like me and my peeps to solve problems for them, because we're not really out there. We don't advertise. And
I had no idea who you were. I happened to get, sorry to cut you off, I happened to get really lucky to have a friend that when something was going on, that I contacted, and I think I said to him, hey, you're kind of good with weird shit, something like that, right? Because this was a weird situation. I won't go into what it is. And he was like, yeah, I've had some weird shit. I got a guy. You know, us Italians, he's Italian too. We got a guy. Right. And so you're the guy. And it's just invaluable. But anyways, finish that.
So, you know, a lot of times...
Before you finish that, can you bring that mic just a little bit closer to you? Yeah, there you go.
Well, you know, a lot of times affluent people communicate with other affluent people.
Yeah.
So most of our business is by word of mouth. And we also have what's called handlers out there. And those are high net worth individuals who are in the mix.
Mm-hmm.
They hear problems,
yeah,
and they direct them our way.
Got it.
You know, since the beginning of time, handlers are usually the way we get our work.
Got it.
And you know, with the internet coming aboard, our website at least gives people an avenue to find us.
Right. Yeah, pretty interesting. And so you've come out to my home, and I'll tell the viewers this. You know, before you came out, me bringing anyone into my home, and I told you this straight. I said, listen, you're a level above when it comes to having all these connections. You know, why should I asked you this, why should I trust you to come into my home with my daughters and my whatever I have, that like, and you kind of explained to me just basically, well, first of all, the reason I was able to do that is because of who referred you. So I had a little bit of a head start because I trust that individual. But you explained to me just the years of, and some of the people and companies that you've helped, and the years of that you've been doing this. And I did some research. You opened, if I wanted it, you opened up tons of referrals, anything I needed. But you understand that concept, right? Because
Sure.
like bringing in the wolf to the chicken hen coop is something you have to think about. And you came to my home because basically, I have an alarm, I have camera systems, I have maybe some safe places in I have some things, right? Just, and of course, I was in law enforcement. I have plenty of things to protect myself with. I always have something on me. But even with that said, I didn't realize some of the things that could be done to protect and early detection of a problem. So you came out to my house and you called it, when we first met, target hardening,
Correct.
which is basically layers of an onion. Like, if you don't mind me saying, hopefully, if not, we'll edit it out, but we've talked, because you're in such a high profile business going after bad guys, that your target is hardened to the max. Like you mentioned to me, if you needed to, you could roll down every door and window and just secure your whole place and be
Sure.
inside. That's extreme, of course, because of the business you're in. And then from there, it's layers out. Do you want to talk about, or just give some of the people listening, or maybe potential clients, of how you harden a target, and some of the simplest things of really, it's really prevention.
Absolutely.
Be more than reaction.
Sure.
So
the first thing in our business, as I told you, is word of mouth. And you have to trust me with your life and your wife. And the reality is,
you
if
can
we're
have
not,
the wife, I just need to live. Go though. Yeah.
people put a lot of trust in us. And in order for us to have a 45-year reputation in doing what we do, we have to maintain that type of etiquette.
Yeah.
That's number one.
Yeah.
People trust us with everything, their families, their children, their monetary assets, their information.
Yeah.
So, we have to be at
That's
the
a
top.
big ask. That's a big ask from
Huge.
Yeah, it's a huge ask.
Huge.
Because, like, for a guy like myself, I don't trust a lot of people, and
Rightly so.
Yeah, and it's a big ask. So there has to be a lot of reputation there for me to have trusted that. Now, I will say, just like my poker game, what my biggest strength is my instincts. My instincts were screaming to me in a positive way, and
Sure.
ever since then, it's been nothing but. Yeah. But what are some of the other layers of how to harden a target?
So when you talk about target hardening, basically in any situation, what we're to do is we're to buy time.
Mm-hmm.
Time is our asset in any situation because it gives you time to make the right call in protecting yourself.
Yeah.
Okay. So the way we do that are two ways. One is we educate. We educate our clients on what to look for, how to conduct themselves. We train domestic help. Your best defense sometimes is a maid, a butler, or a driver, or a cleaning lady who may see something
Yeah.
that may bring it to your attention that you didn't see because
Right.
they're in the home all the time.
Sure.
We teach people about coming and going, how to drive properly, what to look for when coming and going, because most of your incidents occur in or around a vehicle. If you look at history, most of your major assassinations were in or around a vehicle.
Yeah.
It's because you're very vulnerable.
That's right.
So,
Yeah.
so we teach that. Then we get into the physical property, and we look at the property, and we determine, when you say target hardening, what does that mean? It means that you make your property hard to where someone's going to go somewhere else to a softer target.
Yeah.
Okay? If somebody looks at a place and it's hardened, they may not know it, but it's to your benefit
Right.
to buy you time.
Right.
Okay? Early detection is the key.
Yeah.
Being able to weaponize, being able to call law enforcement, having a safe place to go while this is all occurring.
Right.
These are all things that we set up for our clients. We say no job too small, no fee too large.
Yeah.
And
yeah. It's a good business model.
It's it's true. If you want to be safe, if you feel safe mentally, you are safe.
Yeah, and for those of you that are listening that, let's say, are more on the affluent side, or you're doing well, or you have something to lose. And that doesn't always mean monetarily, but if it does, fine. And then, of course, our most precious assets are our family and our loved ones, for sure. There's nothing more than that. And so how I looked at it is this, a lot of people will not think twice about going to spend that, $25,000 on a new motorcycle or a new car. They want to spend a couple $100,000, or they're going to go do this. But when it comes to stuff like this, I've seen people pinch it and not want to invest in it. And when I thought it out, even though I have a lot of those layers to the onions already, as you know, you came to my home and you're like, wow, you're like really ahead of the curve. Like, most people aren't familiar with firearms. Most people don't have, safe places to go in their home, and most people don't have this and that. So I have everything. I just needed a facelift.
Sure.
And I thought to myself when we talked about it, like, I could put this, and I'm not giving the number I'm spending, but let's just say it's $25,000. Let's say it's 10, 5, whatever. Guy like me, I might put that in on a turn bet. And so I thought to myself, if I'm willing to give that money to some dumb shit that I'm sitting there with playing poker, no offense to all you dumb shits, but like, what's more valuable to me than my precious assets, right?
Absolutely.
And so for me, it's like a no-brainer. So I'm not getting anything from you. This is just because, like, I was so interested in what you do and what you're doing, and so interested in this topic. Like I told you, maybe when I'm done with this poker thing, I'll be kicking in some doors with you or something, because that just sounds so fun to me, because I've been so stagnant now since I got out of law enforcement that even thinking about it just gets me hard. I just love it. And when I mean hard, I'm talking about like, my shoulders and my neck.
Of course.
I'm not talking about anything else. Yeah. And so that's why I wanted you to come on, and I wanted you to tell people about this, because I think sometimes we're so used to being in our mode and our grind, and we just do whatever, and we're not thinking about some of these things, and then they happen.
Right.
And then we have to be reactive to it. And I
Sure.
just think that's a mistake. And it woke me up. So the situation I was having was actually good for me, because I was kind of complacent. And to talk about your vehicle thing, being a cop and being on the street, we're taught that. But the average person isn't taught that. So for me, it's commonplace to back in to a parking spot if I'm going to sit there against a wall.
Sure.
Because I don't want anyone coming from behind on me. It's commonplace for me to remember, not because we do this, we all stuff our face into this, right? We're walking, we're talking, we get in the car, we sit there, and we're like this as someone comes to your window to take your life or to take your car.
Sure.
And, for me, I've caught myself doing that. But because of my training, I'm very aware of that. Like, I'm almost extra paranoid if I'm sitting somewhere. I'm in the rear view, I'm in this, I'm in that, someone walking up to me, I always, but most people aren't thinking about that, and that's when these things happen, is like you said. And so the vehicle thing really resonated with me, because even most cops are killed in, not most, that's, okay, I don't want to give a stat that's not true. A lot of police officers are killed in their vehicle.
Correct.
And so one of the things that cops are taught is don't just get stuck in your vehicle. You make a stop, get the hell out of your car as fast as you can, so at least you can be on your feet and not sitting in there. And, some of the old timers, as they got older and lazy, they'd go to a car stop, they wouldn't have any backup, and the guy would be in the car, and they'd sit in their car with their head right into their KDT computer and whatever, and that's, a lot of them get killed that way for complacency.
Absolutely.
Right?
Complacency is number one.
Yeah, it really is. Is there, you mentioned this to me, which I found really interesting. If anyone, this show was great. It's called Ray Donavon. He's the fixer. He's the modern day problem solver. He has contacts and he solves problems for money. You wrote that script.
I did.
And you mentioned to me it got stolen from you, because originally it was called Call Zeke.
Correct.
Tell us about that. Whatever you can tell us about that, and why whoever stole that, why is that person still alive?
Well,
maybe he's not.
Well, it's Hollywood, and you have to expect these things. We wrote that actual script probably 10 years ago, and we went on several pitch meetings.
Right.
And we actually even registered it with the Writers Guild. And one day they said, yeah, we like it. We'll think about it. We'll give you a call. And, of course, I had my attorney, who's a literary writer, and do everything. And they stole it.
They did.
They straight out stole it.
Just like that.
Yeah.
You needed a problem solver. Let me ask you this question. How far will you go to solve a problem? Okay. So,
We do.
When someone looks at you and raises their eyebrows and cocks their head, it's far.
Listen, our clients are everything.
Yeah.
They rely on us.
Yeah.
And during these situations, it really disrupts family life. People are scared for their life, okay? We do what we got to do to make the problem go away.
Yeah. That's good enough for me, man. I love that answer. And you're 24/7. You even told me before we started the interview, if that thing rings or buzzes, you're going to have to take it, right? You're 24/7.
3 in the morning, 3 in the afternoon.
So if I call you in the middle of the night, say bring shovels, you're coming?
I'm coming. And I'm not asking why.
Oh, man. What a contact. That's a joke, folks. Joke. No shovels. I don't need shovels. I have people that have shovels. I don't need to dig my own holes. Just joking. You got to be careful because these idiots here, I'm going to get a ton of, and when I say idiots, I just mean my friends are going to troll me for that. So if you're able to, just to make it interesting, and again, I know this is a tough interview because of the fact that there's so many interesting points to what you do that we can't discuss.
Right.
I'm dying to dig so deep into the layers of this and just go really deep into this, but I know that I can't on a lot of the things, and that's where the interesting part comes in. You and I have had some like off the record talks, and it's so interesting to me, but let me just pick a topic. Are you able to tell us a little bit about not who, not when, not where, but this particular crew you rode with, some of the things that go on and that you had to endure, and the things you dealt with in that lifestyle. And again, you didn't know I was going to ask you that. And if it's something you can't answer, great, we'll move on. If it's something that I caught you off guard and you need to think, go ahead. But I think the listeners would love to know like some of the underworld stuff when you were riding with a professional organized motorcycle. What do you call it? What'd you call it?
Club.
Club. I could say club. Okay. Tell me about that. How does that work?
Really can't go there, but I can tell you that the technical directors on Sons of Anarchy were pretty damn good.
Were they really?
Yeah.
Is that a real good look at it?
Yeah, because
sometimes, like you said, even like the Breaking Bad, like that's just not.
Right.
But in that it is.
But on the other side, it was very well done. And if people want to have a bird's eye view of what goes on in that world, that's fairly accurate.
Well, it's pretty heavy. Those things going on are pretty heavy if that's accurate. I mean, I know that it's accurate, but I'm trying to let everyone hear.
Super heavy and super political. And, more so back in the day than now.
Why?
RICO, feds.
Yeah, those RICO cases are a bitch.
They're a bitch. And, been through a few of them.
Are those clubs watered down now? Are the crimes watered down? Are the things they do different because of RICO?
I think that they're more legitimate at this time.
They've turned into legitimate businesses?
For the most part. Listen, in everything we have good and bad apples, including law enforcement.
Of course.
More so.
I agree.
Right.
And we'll talk about that in a second. Go ahead.
And, people have families and people have lives, and it's a shame to have to lose brothers over politics.
Right.
So I think people are starting to see things a little differently.
Huh.
But there still are fringe elements.
Of course.
We hear about it all the time.
It's just not as heavy.
Right.
Maybe.
Europe.
It can be.
Yeah. Europe is heavy. Canada is heavy.
Why are they heavier?
They're behind the times.
Okay.
What went on here in the 60s and 70s is now in Europe and Canada.
And law enforcement put some things in here that made it really difficult to be that person.
Right. And there's a lot of people doing
the consequences are heavy.
For sure.
Yeah. And, no matter who you are and how hard you are, nobody wants to lose their freedom. Nobody wants their family to be without them.
Sure. And even more than that, nobody wants to lose family.
Ah, the key. Nobody wants to lose family.
Right.
And in those types of situations, that's on the table.
Every day.
God. Yeah, that's tough.
Yep.
That's tough.
Yep.
You mentioned to me, if it's okay, that you don't have some of that in your life, so which makes you better at what you do. Is it okay to say that?
Yeah, I've pretty much dedicated my life to career, and because of the peripherals of my business, I've never been married or have any children.
Right.
I've never wanted anyone to be able to get to me.
That makes it
them.
easier for you to be who you are. because otherwise you're drawn a little bit more dead to the fact that it's a poker term, that what you do could affect something you really love.
100%.
Yourself, you're willing, I don't want to say take the risk, but I've often said this too. If I didn't have anything to lose, I'd probably be a much different person.
Sure.
Right? Because besides that, all you have left is not losing your freedom or your life. But other than that, let's go. Right?
Right. And I made that decision myself, and I have only myself to hold accountable for that. But I've never, ever wanted to draw somebody into my madness.
Damn right. And you mentioned something about law enforcement and bad apples. So it's really funny because the world we live in right now has become a really strange world. And the people watching this podcast come from all walks of life. They have different ideologies. You have some people watching that will love law enforcement and support them, and you have some that won't, right? It's just the way the world is.
And it's how the media spins it too.
Well, I know that, that makes things a lot worse.
Right.
Because I will tell you this. I spent close to 2 decades in law enforcement. You need to get that?
No.
Sure?
Yep.
Okay. Girlfriend?
No.
Okay. So I spent close to 2 decades, and I will say, and I've told people this, I only saw one act that was inappropriate. One. I'm not going to say what it is. Not going to say who it was. And believe it or not, it was handled right on the spot by most of the other coppers there.
Right.
So, but with that said...
Self-policing.
But with that said, I do understand that just like any element in any part of life, that there are bad apples. And there are cops that have taken their authority too far, and they make good cops look bad. And then, of course, the media only centers on that, right? And I think it's a real shame, because the real truth is it's not as bad as it's portrayed, but some of the things that have happened are horrendous, and those should be dealt with. And I've always said that myself. If a police officer takes an oath, now this doesn't mean that he's not going to back up his buddy, that we're not going to be hard when we need to be hard, we're not going to handle things when we need to handle them, because most people don't understand when you're out there, you have to, if someone's here, you have to go here or you die.
For sure.
It's just the way it is, and most people just don't understand that, and if they have that real different ideology on the other side, they really don't understand it. We won't go there because I don't want to get into that, but it's a shame because 95 to even 98% of the cops are good, hardworking, legit people. It's the bad apples, and I've said it. If someone takes that oath, puts on that badge, or puts their hand on that Bible, whatever it is, and they go and do things that the other side is doing, then they got nothing coming. Nothing.
Absolutely.
It's my opinion. Nothing coming at all. And I wish people would understand that more and have a better view of that. That's just me personally, because I was on that side of the street, and I'm a huge supporter of that. But I just think that it would be so nice if we could, if society could balance that out. But it's just not going to happen.
Absolutely. And I got to tell you, my partner is a former police officer.
I met him.
Yes.
Yeah, that's who I met.
Yes.
Yeah.
The most amazing human being ever.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
With the best ethics ever.
Yeah.
We've been partners 15 years, and never a coarse word between us,
Yeah.
ever.
Yeah, I saw the connection you guys had. You could tell you guys are tight.
Yeah. And, it's unfortunate. There are some bad apples out there.
Yeah, for sure.
But I truly believe that most individuals who put a badge on are doing it to help society. Okay?
I believe that too.
Now, with that being said, some of them get a little power hungry.
100%.
Some of them get a little greedy.
100%.
And they lose their way.
Yep.
But it's like fishing with dynamite. Eventually, all the dead ones float to the top.
That's right. And then the media focuses on them, and you think they're all floating on the top.
Sure.
Yeah, that's a shame.
And I got to tell you, the people that dislike law enforcement are the first ones to call law enforcement when they have an issue.
I've always said that.
Yeah. Because they don't know where else to turn. So you're actually turning to the people you don't like.
Yeah, it's a shame. It's a shame it's like that. I don't ever see it really getting better. I'd love to be an optimist, but with the media today, I don't think that's ever going to happen. So hopefully people do their own research and figure things out without just turning on the TV, watching any station. It doesn't even matter. You can put on Fox News, you put on whatever. They're all full of shit, in my opinion.
You are correct, but I think that this country is going to turn. I'm seeing it slowly turn.
Really?
Where even people who have a different agenda, or let's say sit on the other side of the room, are starting to see how bad it is. Okay?
Yeah.
And you can only cover up, you can only blame so much, but the reality is, I personally believe as a problem solver that this country will rectify itself. We need the right administration and we need the right policies, and we'll get there. But it's going to take normal everyday people to be fed up. When you know what they say, when you're sick and tired of being sick and tired, then things you correct it.
Yeah. No, I get it. And I hope you're right. I'll just put it to you that way.
It's going to take a minute, but it'll get there.
I just don't see that trend, but you're closer to it than me, so I'm gonna try to hope you're right and win this flip, because I wish that was the case. Did you find it weird at first? Do you mind if I use the word that you were? You don't mind if I say when you were being a criminal? Were you a criminal?
I was a hardcore criminal.
You were a hardcore criminal. No offense?
No offense.
Okay.
I own it.
Okay, cool. And I dig that about you, right? And so when you were a hardcore criminal and you decided to go, I don't know if you call it straight. I don't think you're completely straight, but kidding. But when you decided to go and live a different life, was it odd or weird for you to start working with the folks that were actually after you? Did it ever feel weird to you starting to work with cops and law enforcement at a different level to do good?
Not really, and I'll tell you why. Because I was never an informant.
Good for you.
And I would never be an informant.
I dig that about you, too. Believe it or not, even as a ex-cop, informants are invaluable to solve things. But you know what? Coming from my Italian background, and you ever heard the word omerta?
Of course.
It doesn't exist anymore.
I took that oath.
You did. It doesn't exist anymore, really, to be honest with you. So anyone in any lifestyle, in any business that will hold their mud, regardless, I respect.
One of the interesting things is that people I know in that community respect me for not going there, because some of the people that I have in my life now came to turn me.
Say how you mean.
They came to try and turn me as an informant.
Oh, even after the fact.
And
like,
that's
hey,
how
like,
I met them.
Got it.
During.
Oh, you told me this.
Yeah.
And then I think you please tell, but someone came to you and said, I respect you for not.
We couldn't have been friends otherwise.
Yeah.
And they stay at my home.
Yeah.
We have meals together.
They trusted you because you were trusted.
Correct.
I dig it. Yeah,
Correct.
no, good for you.
It's a two-way street.
If you wouldn't have been that, you wouldn't be sitting here. You wouldn't have the success you have because you can't be trusted.
Yeah. You know, in the old days, they used to do people like that. And one of the reasons I think that informants are so prevalent in our society now is because there's no consequence for being an informant. You know, they used to find people in the front of cars with their back of their head blown out. You knew the dude was a rat. And,
yes.
Right. And society has taken real leniency. In fact, there's people that want to tell from the back of the police car before they even get to the police station.
Believe me, I remember.
You know?
Yeah.
They'll tell on someone, and I hate to say this, but sometimes that's what the political agenda wants. They want people to tell on people. They want, they want to breed distrust. They don't want you trusting the man next to you.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, that's
from
for sure.
where I come from, it's the most important issue that we have is to be truthful and right.
Yeah. Just me as my nature. Maybe it's my Italian background. Maybe it's just how I was raised. I don't know. But the two things that are paramount to me in a relationship, they're everything. And the first one is trust.
Absolutely.
If I cannot trust you, even if you show me, my dad told me one time, and he passed away when I was 10, but I remember some of the things he told me, and he told me one thing. He said, and he tried to explain it to me as a kid, believe people the first time. If somebody fucks you over the first time, and I believe in forgiveness and grace, I really do, and I think you should give it, but they will never be trusted
when it's
again.
Earned.
When it's earned. They will never be trusted again. Believe
Correct.
people the first time when they show you who they are. So the first thing to me is trust. If I could trust you, you're everything to me as a friend or as an acquaintance. The second one is respect. I believe in respecting every single person. I don't care who you are. No, everyone that watches this, shouldn't say everyone, knows a lot of my beliefs. I don't talk about them on this show because I don't want a political or religious show. But, I'm a believer in God, and I also am very conservative in a lot of my thoughts, which I don't get into. But here's the thing. If somebody will respect what I believe in a country we live in that's supposed to be free and just respect me, I will respect you back.
Sure.
I don't care if you're so far on the other side of what I believe, totally different to me. As long as you don't disrespect me, attack me, and accuse me of being something that I'm not, I could be best of friends with you, and we can be completely polar opposites in every ideology or belief we have. It's when people cross over and start disrespecting other people's beliefs and believing that they're not a good person because they believe a certain way. So again, back to the point is trust and respect. And you know what? In the true criminal world or even law enforcement, if you could be that person, not that I'm promoting becoming a criminal, I'm just saying for anyone out there trying to say, Nick, saying, no, what I'm saying is whatever you do, be that person.
For sure.
And you'll be really good at it.
100%.
Yeah. And because I could tell you, and I'll just say it doesn't matter now, like, when I was back in the day and I saw the CIs, which is the confidential informants back in the day, the rats.
Right.
Fine. Okay. The cops always like, oh yeah, and buddies, and they took their texts and they helped them and they did things, but it was only for their service.
Personal
they didn't
gain.
respect them.
For sure.
They didn't respect them. The coppers on the street respected the guy that you had on the curb that you're like, you want out of this? You talk to me. Fuck you.
For sure.
And we'd walk back and go, well, at least the guy's fucking solid. Like, I
Right.
could respect that.
Right.
Still went to jail.
Sure.
But you know what I'm saying? But the guy, like you said, he can't get in the car fast enough and to tell you everything. It's like...
Or they're dope sick and they need heroin.
Yeah, they really didn't have the respect of the
Right.
cops. They were used.
Sure.
And so if you're listening, whoever you are, don't be that person.
Sure.
You
I'll
know?
tell you a little story real quick.
Please.
I had a baptism by fire. I was 5 years old.
Okay.
And I was in the garage and I was playing with my friend. And we got into some mischief and we made a mess.
Yeah.
Kind of a big mess.
Yeah.
And my father came out
Yeah.
and he looked and he goes, "Who did this?" And it was me. But I pointed to my friend.
Wow.
He picked me up by my shirt collar, 5 years old. And he whooped my
Chills.
ass.
Yeah.
And I mean whooped my butt. He says, "Don't you ever tell on anyone, ever."
Good for him.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, it
and
stuck with
that
you.
set the tone
Stuck
for the
with you.
rest of my life. So
yeah, it's weird
Yeah.
how you could be shaped. That's such a cool story, how you could be shaped like that, because like I said, my father was a man's man. And he was, if back in the day, if you were his age, you might have known him if you lived in Chicago, because he was on the other side of things. He was basically, he was lived by omerta.
Right.
Okay. And even as a young kid, as I would drive around with him, I would drive around sometimes downtown Chicago and Addison Street, and he'd be picking up money, doing things, and I'd roll around with him. And I just remember we would go into here and there, and as a kid, I really didn't know what was going on, other than my dad was very respected. I could feel that as I was with him, and he would tell me little things like you're telling me. Like, he would just talk as I would sometimes we'd be driving so long sometimes, so I'd lay in his lap, whatever, or I'd sit, and we'd be rolling. Back then, you didn't have to have a seat, whatever. I was in the front seat, just
Sure.
rolling, and he would tell me things like that about respect, and about being a man, and about holding your mud, and about being a good friend, and all these different things. And there's one thing in the book that he taught me too, is that the only way you're going to get respect sometimes at a lower level, I don't mean at this high level of really cleaning things up. I was probably 8 or 9 years old. It's in my book, and it was a lifelong lesson that he taught me, and that was, I'm bigger now, but when I was like 7, 8, I was really small. I didn't grow till like high school where I got bigger, but I was like really small for my age, and I was on a baseball team, and I was really good at baseball and all that stuff. And there was this one kid that was on a team that was always around the fields around, and he was a bigger bully kid, and he was always fucking with everyone, and he targeted me, and we'd go to the snack stand and get these things called Chili Billies, and it was like chili with chips, and you look forward to it. And this kid was always fucking with me, and like I went to my dad, and I'm like, "Hey, what are you gonna do about this?" And he looked at me and he said, and it's so weird.
What are you going to do about it?
Yeah, he looked at me, and I don't know if he, like, it's so foreshadowing. He's like, I'm not always going to be here. And he died, like, I think 2 years later. He said, so what are you going to do about it?
Right.
And I said, but did you see this kid? He's like, sometimes you need to get your ass kicked to get respect. And he literally told me those words, and I was scared. And so I remember we were standing by the thing. I had the thing in my hand I was eating, and this kid was threw a baseball at me to knock it down, and my shit fell. And I remember looking at my dad, again, like, what are we going to do here? And he looked at me like, and I knew what he meant, and I'm like, and I was scared shitless.
Absolutely.
Okay? And I just remember whatever I had left in my hand, I threw it down. I ran at this kid and tackled him, this big kid, and I just started everything I had, which was not much.
Which he was never used to.
He couldn't believe it, I guess, because he was like, ah. And I remember being lifted off the ground, but it wasn't my dad. It was the other kid's dad that lifted me off and threw me down and said, what in the fuck's going on here? And my dad wasn't a very tall guy. He walked over and he said, your little fucking son got what he finally deserved.
Right.
And
had your back.
Right. And he looked at the guy. The guy was like, whatever. And my dad said, stay out of it. And that was it. The kid got up. He was like all shook or whatever. And I remember walking off the field. My dad had his arm around me and he's like,
that's my boy.
that's my boy.
Right.
And I never forgot it. And he also told me this too. Never start that. Never be a bully. Never start shit. Never be the one instigating it. But never back off, because you will not be respected and your shit will be knocked out of your hand for the rest of your life. It chokes me up. It was invaluable to me.
Absolutely. And you have to remember, sometimes you have to teach people how to treat you.
Yeah.
And respect sometimes comes from the end of a gun.
Yeah. I love that. Today's day, what we're taught, the new generation, find out why he's angry. Fuck you. You find out why you're angry.
Right.
Okay? And we're taught, this country's been pussified. And there are not a lot of man's men in this world anymore. And that doesn't mean guys pulling their wives around by their hair or cavemen, because as a man, you should be respectful. You should take care of the weaker. You should be, so believe me, that's not a macho comment, because being a man's man does not mean you're an arrogant prick. It just means you know how to be that guy versus the guy that is like, it's just, and I'm seeing so much of that now that like, from where I'm from, in my generation, I'm looked at, or people like myself are looked at as now the problem, because that's how our society has gone.
And I am the problem solver.
Yeah, that's right.
And that's why we enjoy doing what we do so much, because we are the equalizer.
That's why I told you, if I ever get to a point, because I'm hustling right now, I'm running this poker show. It's the #1 poker show in the world. I'm playing poker full time now for a living. I've never been happier. But I love what you do. And that's why I told you someday I may want to be part of that, because to actually go and help people out of things that they shouldn't be in because somebody else wants to be that kid at the field.
Right.
Inspires me.
Sure.
And not to hurt somebody, not to have an ego, to just fix things that need to be fixed, because there are some things in this world that can't be fixed by the legitimate things that we have in place to do it. They're just not fixable.
Right.
So that's why you were so interesting to me, and that I wanted you on this show, because I wanted people out there to know that this exists. And this isn't to be used at your leisure. This is to be used when it's really something that shouldn't be happening.
Sure.
Don't
and
you agree?
in our tradition, in the Jewish tradition, we have a word called mitzvah.
Yeah.
And it's doing God's work.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes guys like me have to do God's work.
I dig it, man. I really dig it. Zeke, we've been going close to an hour here. I don't have any other questions for you. If you have anything else that you want to tell me or all the people that are going to be listening to this, please do. If not, we'll wrap it up and we'll go sit and finish this smoke.
Thanks. Just as a society, we see and the statistics don't lie.
Yeah.
Where we're going as a society right now.
Yeah.
And to the person who has something, or even the person that doesn't, heighten your senses, be aware of your surroundings, make yourself and your family a harder target. Do what you can on your economic level to target harden your life.
Whatever layers you can put
Absolutely.
in place.
Look after your family and take care of one another. Very important.
I love it. Your information will be in the YouTube description, so anyone could get a hold of you.
Sure.
Thank you for taking the time to come out here. We're not close friends, but I consider you a friend now. We just met in recent months, and I have a feeling that will deepen and our friendship will go to another level. You're invaluable to have as a friend because of the things we talked about, and I appreciate you coming on.
And thank you for having me, and I believe that we're on a path together.
Absolutely. Same here. Anyways, this is the Nick Vertucci Show. I am Nick Vertucci. It says it right there. And this is Zeke Unger, and he is today's wolf. I thought I was the wolf. You are the wolf.
Thank you.
I'll just be a little wolf.
Glad to be here.
All right. Envy out.